Hey everyone, how are you guys doing? Happy New Year! And I hope you guys also had a Merry Christmas. How was your Christmas and New Year, Jack? Any exciting things happen? What did you do to spend time with your family over the 2 week break that we took for family time? What did you do?
Yeah, honestly, not a whole lot going on. Definitely caught up on some sleep that I was sorely missing out on late in the
We all needed
semester with
that. We all needed that for
finals and work. But spent a nice Christmas Eve and Christmas Day with my family, and then spent New Year's Eve with my friends. So it's been a good time just catching up with people that obviously I wouldn't normally be able to see at school. But how about you? How was your vacation?
It was good. It was good. I got to see all my family down in Georgia. Well, most of my family. One of my cousins and his fiance got sick, so they didn't want to risk seeing me with what had happened to me recently, and I appreciate that. And but it was a little sad not to see them because that cousin was one of the guys that I talked football with a lot, and I haven't seen him in a while, so it was good to. It was kind of sad that I couldn't see him, but I prioritize your health for sure. But we have a lot to go over today. We're gonna preview the Bears versus Packers game tomorrow, but it's gonna be the shortest preview that you've ever heard because there's no reason to watch this game. There's no reason to be excited about it. I'm just excited for Monday. If there was a way, I wish we could skip tomorrow's game because there's no reason to watch it. I'm hoping for 200 yards and maybe a touchdown out of Caleb, but I'm not expecting much more than that. What would you expect out of tomorrow, Jack?
Yeah, I mean, the only reason I'll probably watch is because it's the last Bears football game we'll be able to see until next August once preseason football starts up again. So as much as I'll probably be annoyed the entire time I'm watching, I'll definitely watch and tune in. But like you said, hopefully Caleb just continues to. I mean, maybe not. Maybe continues is the wrong word after how last week went against the Seahawks,
Right?
but
Yeah.
find his footing again, have a good offensive game. I think the Packers will be playing all their starters, if I'm not mistaken,
Yes, they
because
will. They will.
they can still flip flop with Washington for the 6 and 7 seed. So it should be pretty much what you described. I don't expect us to have the best chance in this game. We had our shot to beat them at home. We've now lost what 10 in a row, and we're playing in Green
Yep.
Bay in a game they need to win. So I don't think it takes a rocket scientist to make a prediction for what's going to happen in this
No,
one.
it does not. I mean, it's just so sad because you look at the off season we had, and you look at all the talent that we at least on paper added, and you're like, oh my god, we're actually going to compete, and just lo and behold, because of a dumpster fire decision at coach, we screw it up, and it's all it is. I mean, it's not all entirely his fault, but 85% of it is probably his fault.
Yeah, and
But
it's brutal. It's brutal going to play the Packers, and I have one good friend who's a Packers friend, who God bless him, but he knows nothing about football, and I just have to sit there and take all of his chirps because, like, even though he
I,
doesn't know much, like, he's a Packers fan and I'm a Bears fan, so he's got one thing on me that he can always go to.
yeah, I have a couple of Packers fans, that I'm personal friends with. We had him on the podcast. My friend Peyton, he's the diehard Packer fan, and then my football coach, who actually I discussed with him having him on the podcast today or in the past about coming on in the future, but with how bad we are, he would just rub it in my face and talk about how good the Packers are. So I would like to at least be able to compete with them before I have him on the podcast because I don't want to hear all of the you know rubbing in my face things that he's gonna say because that's all he's gonna do, even though he loves me. But um, so let's get into you know the more important part of this podcast, and that is the fact that on Monday we can actually officially start the head coaching search for this for the Bears' next head coach. And I mean, we've talked about a bunch of the candidates, but we're gonna um, talk about how much information that we know about the search so far. So Adam Schefter reported on Monday, so uh, the 30th, I believe, or something, that he believes Ryan Poles will be in Chicago next season. And I also read reports from people that believe he'll be extended. Now, the extended part of the reports for us are a wait and see, but I choose to believe that Poles will be here next year because when a report comes from Schefter or Ian Rappaport, it's most likely true. The, the reason that I believe Poles will be here in Chicago after this is because Poles has been doing research on candidates for the last 4 weeks, and if uh, they were going to fire Poles, um, they probably would have done it by now. And Albert Greer, who's also a very respected reporter, reported that Chicago Bears ownership wants current GM Ryan Poles to hire the next head coach. Quote, GM Ryan Poles is set up to run point on the search, and I'm told it's because that's the way ownership wants it. And I mean, I believe that every GM should get two shots at hiring a head coach, but there's a lot of things that he needs to fix with this next search for sure. But what are your thoughts on that, Jack? Before we continue on.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this a little bit the other day. I'm not really too strong minded either way, whether it be retaining or firing Ryan Poles. The only thing that worries me is that we don't extend him. He's on a 1 year deal. We bring in a new head
Sure.
coach. They don't do great next year, and then we fire Ryan Poles. And then we just continue on this cycle of rotating coaches and GMs and quarterbacks. And
Mm-hmm.
as much as I I hate when Chicago sports teams talk about continuity because their idea of continuity is keeping the same bad team around and hoping they get better.
Right.
But there is something to be said about continuity when you have a good run, like a well run franchise, and you keep the guys around that have been making it good. So the Bears obviously do need to find some type of continuity at some point in their franchise's history. Uh, I'm just worried that the continuity that we're keeping around per se is the GM that's brought us to one more win this year than the year that he took over and we were in a massive rebuild. So
Yes, and um, I actually want to comment on something that you said with continuity. With or not with continuity. I'm sorry. With Ryan Poles, not us not knowing if Poles is going to be extended or if he's going to be, the lame duck 1 year choice. If he's the lame duck 1 year choice, I think that completely takes us out of the running for Ben Johnson because
I
I mean
agree.
because he has said that he wants GM and head coach alignment, and I will admit every GM should want that. GM and head coach should want that, but the the Bears are just such a dysfunctional organization that they don't make it work. I mean, now let me say this. The last time that we were looking for a head coach before Eberflus, McCaskey said that Ryan Pace would get another shot, and he was on the the last year of his deal, and then like the day before the search started, he was extended for 4 years. So if, it could happen, but I think we get answers on that probably on Monday, which definitely should be the day we get answers, because they're going to have their end of the year press conference, which always is like the day after the season ends for any team. So, I mean, I just want some answers, man. I want to know, you know, is is um, is who's leading the search. I want to clear, well, they won't say who they're interviewing, but they'll say, we have candidates lined up, of course, which we will actually get into in a little bit. But it's just, I just think that there's always a way that the Bears will mess this up. There's
For
always
sure.
some way. I mean, the McCaskies are. I don't know. I don't really know what they have to ride high on, but I mean, I was talking with a bunch of my friends about this yesterday. Uh, the Bears aren't the only dysfunctional Chicago-based sports team. I would say that, as much as I love him, Jerry Reinsdorf is just as bad because he's riding high on the 6 championships that he won with Jordan, but that was, you know,
30 years ago now.
30 years ago. So,
Yeah, I
you
mean, trust me, as a White Sox fan and a Bulls fan, I mean, the Hawks aren't run great ownership wise, and neither are the Cubs. I know a lot of Cubs fans are constantly mad at the Ricketts family for not spending enough money. So it's
sure,
just something about this city and bad ownership just go hand in hand.
yeah, but you want to know what's funny? So I read something and saw a tweet on Twitter a couple of days ago. So when Ron Rivera has been the coach or the coach of an organization, the previous owner proceeds to sell the franchise. So because uh, he was
Carolina
Carolina and
and
they
what?
sold, and then Washington and they sold. Now, I mean, I don't think we actually interview Ron Rivera, but if there's a
No,
way to,
if we bring back Riverboat Ron, I am done. Like that
yeah,
is
I don't,
just
and that's not one of the. I don't see that being one of their candidates. But if there was a way to convince the McCaskies to sell, maybe Ron Rivera would be the guy for it. But let's get into the head coach candidates that we're going to talk about. So it's reported that they're going to interview 12 to 14 people, which I actually think that's kind of too much because you can't get to know the coaches that much if you interview that many coaches. Now I understand they want to do an extensive search and make sure that this is the right person, but I mean, okay, the Bears have done it where they have an offensive coach. If they fire that coach, they go with a defensive coach. They just fired a defensive coach, so I'm pretty sure it's all Bears fans' hopes that we hire a offensive coach. But the thing about that is that's not the leader of men type criteria apparently. We have a list of candidates, but there's a short list that was reported that they're talking that they've been mentioned so far, which is Lions OC Ben Johnson, which thank God, Vikings DC Brian Flores, which I mean his team's doing great, but it's also because of that offense. Uh, Lions DC Aaron Glenn, um, Commanders OC Cliff Kingsbury, former Titans head coach Mike Vrabel, and Dolphins DC Anthony Weaver. Now, of that list, I don't think Weaver actually gets serious consideration. I just think they're casting as far as a net as they can. But let's get into our list of candidates. So, um, we I just said that they're gonna interview 12 to 14 people. That's too much. So we're both going to go over our top 8. And I think we have the same list, right?
Yeah, it was the same list.
Obviously, Ben Johnson is at the top of everyone's list, which he should be. There's no hardball in this cycle, I would say. I mean, you could say that there is with Mike Vrabel, with him being a previous head coach, but he's not to that stature, in my opinion. Um, but, Ben Johnson's the next best thing. He's had a very successful offense, with the Lions. But I did watch a video last night where um, it actually brought a concern that no one is talking about, because I don't think he has a problem with commanding a room, because like he's getting pumped up on the sidelines when the Lions do a trick play or something like that. But I watched a video that said um, everywhere that he's been, he has had a veteran quarterback. With Ryan Tannehill when he was with the Dolphins before Brian Flores got hired as the head coach there. He was the uh, quarterbacks coach for Miami. He didn't, survive that staff. But then, he joined the Detroit Lions, and now he's the OC when they have Jared Goff, who was brought up in the McVay tree, and that's always like a successful tree for quarterbacks. So my question is, can he develop a quarterback? And I'm not saying that this should prevent you from hiring him if he's the choice, which I'm praying that he is the choice. But it is a concern that no one was thinking about, that actually is a legitimate concern. And Jack, I know that we haven't talked about it, but do you think that's a legitimate concern?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely worth taking note of everything that you can for each head coaching candidate, and this is probably what the guys who are running the search are doing. But I think personally, it's not too big of a concern for me, just because if you look at where Jared Goff was, when he came into Detroit, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
people had pretty much given up on his career, and he had stagnated his last year or two in Los Angeles. And I mean, McVay himself obviously thought that they weren't going to be able to contend for a Super Bowl in their window with Jared Goff over Matthew Stafford. And we've seen over the last couple years, Ben Johnson has been able to bring out the best in Jared Goff and bring out a
Sure,
lot of the things that he was
sure,
drafted number one overall for. And I think that when you have that brilliant of an offensive mind, it can be something you worry about, them overloading a young quarterback, whereas a veteran might be able to handle that stuff more. But I think Ben Johnson is a good enough coach where he would know that he may not be able to run as extensive of what he's doing in Detroit right now and have to sort of lean into what Caleb is better at when he first gets to Chicago, if he were to come, and then slowly but surely open up the playbook as he and Caleb build a better relationship and a better understanding of his offense.
yeah, and let me say, I don't think that it's a high concern with the development. I just think that's something that might be brought up in the interview. Like, you have never developed a young quarterback. How would you develop Caleb? I think I think that's a legitimate question in the interview process.
For sure.
I mean, I think it's a smart question, because you've just been around veteran quarterbacks. So, but Ben Johnson has also talked very highly of Caleb. And
He had.
let me say this: so there are three openings right now. The Jaguars, no, they're not open yet, but I do expect them to be open.
Yeah.
The Jets, the Saints, and the Bears. I only expect Johnson to take 2 interviews, and they're with the Bears and the Jaguars.
That's also what I've heard as well.
And uh, Bill Zimmerman, I came out with a report that like it gave numbers that he projects. Between the two, it's going to the Jaguars, going to the Bears. the field and going back to Detroit. Um, he does have the Jaguars as ahead right now, but I think that's because
They
you
can
know
offer more money.
they can offer more money, and they might be like, you can pick your GM, if when you get here. But with polls, will that be the situation, or how does that work? But we won't know
Yeah.
yet.
I mean,
But
for as bad of a franchise as the Bears are, I would hope that we're a little bit more enticing than Jacksonville is.
I feel like we are in
But I mean,
terms.
that's also, but we're also Bears fans, so I feel like it's a little bit biased, you know?
Yes, we might be a little biased. But I mean, it sure is enticing that the Jaguars would have the easier division. But the problem is, you might have to tear down your roster first at Jacksonville,
Yeah.
because I mean, when a new head coach and new GM come in, that's what they do, because it's not their team; it's the
Yeah.
previous regime's team.
I mean,
So
we saw the Bears do it when Ryan Poles and Matt Eberflus first got here. I mean, that first
exactly,
year that the roster was completely stripped. So
exactly. I mean, this team that the Bears have is at least a lot more built, I would say. I mean,
yeah,
there's
and
still pieces missing, but you
yeah,
have the most important one right now, for
for
sure.
sure. And the last thing I want to add is uh, you could also argue Jacksonville has their quarterback and Trevor Lawrence as well. But for people who don't remember, Trevor Lawrence has signed a mega contract extension
Hmm.
last offseason.
Hmm.
That's going to make it a little bit harder to build a roster around him. Whereas the Bears have Caleb Williams on his rookie deal for the next four off
For
seasons.
years,
So,
yeah, yeah, that's a good point. So, I think we talked plenty about Ben Johnson. Let's just move on and pray that that's the choice, because I think he's I think there are other candidates that could save us, but he's
but I
the,
mean,
the highest
yeah,
person on that list. Like it's Ben Johnson, and then there's a big gap of when it comes to candidates. So
yeah,
he's 1A, or he's one, and the next candidate is like 3. There's not even a 2 in my opinion, just because of the choices. But the second guy on my list, which I'm actually kind of a little interested why they haven't uh like interviewed him, or not interviewed, expressed interest in him, is Joe Brady, because he's working wonders in Buffalo with a lot less than people think. Like, he doesn't have like that number one top receiver for Josh Allen, and Josh Allen is playing like MVP right now. So I mean, he should be on their list, but I haven't seen anything that said that he's expected to interview. I've seen Cliff Kingsbury is expected to interview. I saw Ben Johnson is expected to interview, and I think Mike Vrabel and uh, Brian Flores. I think those are the 4 that I've seen right now, which that's a good list, I think. But I'm surprised that Brady's not on this list. Are you?
yeah, I am. The only thing that kind of serves as a drawback with me for Joe Brady is just the different reasons for success. I mean,
How
if you
much
wanted
of
to
it
compare him
is
to Ben
him
Johnson,
compared to?
yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
yeah, obviously, like I think when you watch a Detroit game, a lot of their offensive success is predicated on
absolutely.
Goff being accurate to an extent, but a lot of their guys are being schemed open very well.
Hmm.
Like a lot of
Hmm.
these passes, the guys have like 5, 10 yards of separation on them, and the defense just seemingly doesn't know how they got there.
Sure.
Whereas when you watch Buffalo, it's equally as impressive watching their offense, but a lot of it is just Josh Allen freaking going out there and making plays and putting the team on his back. And obviously, I'm not saying Joe Brady's a bad offensive play caller. He's
No,
clearly good.
no,
He's
yeah,
calling plays for one of the best teams in the league. But I think, just as you mentioned, the slight concern about Ben Johnson never having coached a young quarterback, I think that could be a concern for Joe Brady, is how much of this offensive success is on the back of Josh Allen and how much of it is
On
because of the play
him.
calling.
I would say, I would say just because of the fact that Josh Allen was there before Brady was the play caller and his QB coach and all that stuff, because he was the QB coach before he was promoted to OC. I would say that 65% of it is probably on the back of Josh Allen, and 35% of it's on uh, Joe Brady. I was going to say 80-20, but I'm going to be generous. And
Yeah, I think 65 because I mean they weren't great with Ken Dorsey last year before he got fired, so as
mhm.
their offensive coordinator. So I mean I think 65-35 is a fair number.
So I mean, I actually we went out a little out of order. But I want to just say that you know the interviews can actually start. We can formally request to interview people January 8th, which is Wednesday. Um, and the end of the year press conference would probably be on Monday, which we will talk about on Monday afterward, probably. But one thing that I will that me and Jack both agree on with the Bears head coach search is the fact that the Bears haven't had Mike Vrabel in for an interview yet. You know, because his consulting contract ran out with the Browns like 3 or 4 days ago, and I like expected like the next 2 days that the Bears would at least have a interview scheduled. Um, and um, I don't understand why they haven't actually put that in yet. Because they can talk to him now. You know, I see this as two scenarios. I think the more likely scenario is Poles may be on his way out, and that's why we haven't done it already. Uh, the other thing is they don't actually want to talk to him, which is just as likely. But with how this, uh, part of me wants to see Poles gone because I don't know how much uh, success we've had with him, and if it ensures our chances at getting Ben Johnson, I would definitely do that. But with how dysfunctional the team is, I'm also prepared to see polls here for this search and beyond that. But if we do move on from him, just do it after the game on Sunday. Don't wait till Monday. Just get it over with. Um, so, and another thing is, the Bears can't interview coaches that are in the playoffs until after the wild card round is over, and those are virtual. And the wild card round is over January 16th or 17th. So the Bears will not have their head coach until after we return from winter break, which I'm actually very happy about because they need to take their time with this hire, and the only way that this hire is it happens faster is if the Lions lose to the Vikings and they're the fifth seed and they get knocked out first round of the playoffs. If that's the case, the minute that uh, the game's over, get Ben Johnson in for an in-person interview and just offer him the job. That would be my perfect world. But you know, knowing how good the Lions are, I don't see them being the fifth seed. I see them being the one seed and having the bye, which actually means that we could interview them. But um, but that also means that we'd have to wait until he gets knocked out to formally offer him the job. So, but what are your thoughts on that, Jack?
Yeah, I mean, I think a third option for the Vrabel thing is just the Bears are being stupid and waiting until Sunday to do everything all at once and like not wanting to get a head start on
Yeah,
it.
yeah. I mean, I talked to people, and they always wait until the season's over, which is not the right way to do it. If
Yeah,
you've
and I mean,
gotten the head start, get the head start. I mean,
yeah,
so
yeah. But the only other thing I'd say is really, as far as all of this goes, is as soon as that clock hits zero on Sunday, your clock for the off season is started. So I'm
uh-huh.
not saying go rush and make a rash decision, but as soon as that game hits triple zeros, all of your attention has got to be focused on this head coaching search, and
Yep.
it needs to be done well. But I mean, that's all we can really say. We're not running the head coaching search, unfortunately.
Oh, I
So
wish we were, because I'm pretty sure every Bears fan would be behind us if we decided to hire Ben Johnson.
yeah,
If this was the fan ran football league, or whatever that league is called, I think that's what it's called. I mean,
and
I think every fan would be happy. So,
yeah,
um, third on my list is another option that I really like, but also he bounces around a lot. It's Liam Cohen, but he's worked wonders with Baker in uh, Tampa, and he also was the offensive coordinator for the Rams when he was there shortly, I believe. But he has like 39 touchdowns and like 4,300 yards, I think, this season, something like that.
Baker
It's a
Mayfield. Yeah,
crazy,
he's got 40 touchdowns, I think.
it's a crazy stat line, and I mean, when you look at um, the weapons that Tampa has and the weapons that the Bears will have, their weapons are similar. So I mean, if Cohen can design a similar offense to for Caleb, maybe we see you know the last year at USC type of Caleb with 40 touchdowns and uh, 5 interceptions. I think it was something like that. Now
Hmm.
Baker has more interceptions than that, but I mean he's taken shots, which is something that actually Caleb hasn't done that much of this year. But also he's put up a respectable stat line for his situation, so I'm happy with it. But
Yeah,
what would your thoughts be if Liam Cohen was one of the top three choices at the end of this? I guess.
I mean, Liam Cohen has been someone that's definitely grown on me throughout the year. Kind of random, but I think Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold were the two quarterbacks that I believed in the most the last couple of years. I just really hadn't been getting it done. You know about my affinity for Sam Darnold, and
Sure.
I'm kicking myself every day that I didn't place some type of future bet on
That.
him to be like top five for MVP or something like that because
Uh huh.
I literally called it. And now he's doing it, and I don't get to reap any rewards from it, but whatever.
Hey,
Uh,
I mean, I envy you, man. I was like, I was like, Sam Darnold isn't gonna be the starter there. It's gonna be JJ McCarthy, and then he gets injured, and then proceeds to reluctantly get the job, and he's playing like an MVP. And in fact, people are saying that what they should uh try to trade JJ McCarthy and sign Darnold to a long term deal. And I mean, if this was 1 year, if this was just 1 year, I mean, that's awesome. So maybe they do it. I don't know. I
I mean,
I would I would
personally, I think
consider
they
it.
should because you know how big of a Darnold guy I am, and Darnold's only 27 years old,
Uh-huh.
and you really never know what you're getting with a rookie quarterback, even if you're Kevin O'Connell and have a good eye for that
Sure,
stuff.
sure.
But anyways, going back to Liam Cohen, uh, obviously good work with Baker this year. He picked up right where Dave Canales left off when he left for Carolina this offseason. And then obviously has experience working with young quarterbacks as a college quarterback coach and offensive coordinator.
Uh huh.
Worked with Will Levis right before he turned pro, and he was obviously a high draft pick. So
Yeah.
I think there are a lot of positives for Liam Cohen. Probably not going to be the Bears' choice unless a couple of their other top guys end up taking jobs elsewhere before the Bears can snag them up.
Sure.
But I wouldn't be far from upset if Liam Cohen ended up as the next Bears head
No,
coach.
no, no. I mean, there's a couple that I would be upset with, like so I now let me be clear. I don't think this happens, but Mike McCarthy, his contract and ends with the Dallas Cowboys January uh 14th, and their season's over the 6th, like ours. So I think I I mean, Jerry Jones is the owner and GM, so you can't bring in your own GM, whoever the next coach is, because Jerry Jones is the egotistical type of owner. And I hope that Jerry Jones doesn't watch this because I don't want to be get in trouble for saying that, but he kind of is. Um, but I mean, I just think that they're gonna have a timetable from when their season ends to when his contract is over to get a new contract for him. But if they don't, and for some reason the Bears interview Mike McCarthy, and if he was one of their top choices, I would not be happy with that with his age.
No,
And I don't think that he's as successful as people think. I mean, he had Rodgers when he was successful. That's why he was successful. So, um, that would be one name I would be upset with. And Anthony Weaver would probably be one of the other ones because I don't think he actually deserves to be a head coach candidate yet. I would say he needs a couple more years at DC before he gets a real look, which I really don't think that he's actually going to get a real look with the Bears. They're just casting a wide net. So, but number four for us was actually, let me look at the script so I can get this right. I don't want to. Yeah, number four is Mike Vrabel. And this is really the only defensive um, minded guy I'd be comfortable with because it's been reported that he would want to bring in Josh McDaniels or Tommy Reese as his offensive coordinator. I like the combination of Vrabel and McDaniels more than I like the combination of uh, Vrabel and Reese because McDaniels is the proven play caller. But I would see if Reese would be the QB coach if that was the choice. But I mean, he also wants I think he wants to report to the owners, which the Bears never let the head coach report to the owners. They report to the president. President reports to them, and so there's a bunch of dysfunction here. Um, so I expect him to get an interview. I don't know how heavily he will consider the Bears. I think the Bears will consider him heavily because he has head coach experience, but I don't know how much he considers the Bears the best option for him. I would say that the Jets are probably the best option for him because he could bring in his own GM probably because I think whoever the GM is, they're out. So, number five is Pete Carroll, and this one I don't think gets heavily considered either. I think they just want to talk to him because of his experiences, and maybe they ask him, how do we turn around our franchise to make it like your run in Seattle, which I think it is a smart person to ask because he made two Super Bowls, should have won two Super Bowls if you hand off the ball to Marshawn Lynch at the 1 yard line, which I am still baffled that they did not do that. But I mean, but what are your thoughts on Pete Carroll?
yeah, I mean Pete Carroll. I think if he was like 10 years younger, he would be the perfect candidate
Sure, but
He is 73 years old now, but I do
mhm.
think you're onto something as far as bringing him in just to pick his brain a little bit. And if Pete Carroll would be willing to come on in some type of consultant role, like he's currently in with Seattle, like if he
Mhm.
were, I doubt it. He's always been a West
Yeah,
Coast guy,
he
but
wants to be on the sideline. He wants to be on the
yeah.
sideline.
So
So
I mean, I think it's definitely no harm in interviewing him, and if he comes in with a great plan and he's the guy you want, then by all means go for it. I just think that the age thing is
if
definitely his biggest detractor.
that, but here's my contingents to that plan. If he's the choice, that's great because he would be the most tenured and experienced coach on our list. But if he is the choice, with him being 73, you gotta put in your contract. Um, you know, when I retire in when this contract is over, this person on my staff would be the next head coach. Because I just think that that's how it would work. Because I don't think that they would want to have Pete Carroll for however long the contract is. I would say this it would be similar to Bill Belichick in North Carolina because his son is going to be the next North Carolina coach when he retires, probably in about 5 years, maybe three, because it's because I think that the first 3 years of his contract are guaranteed, and then the last two are not. So who knows?
Yeah,
But oh no, we talked
six.
about, yeah,
Yeah,
number six is Brian Flores. Brian Flores has been a head coach before, but he didn't like Tua and went through multiple OCs during his time as Dolphins head coach. The reason that he has made this list uh, for me is because he has a connection to Ryan Poles, and Kevin Warren has gotten nothing but positive reviews from the Vikings, which is his previous organization. But Flores has to show the Bears that he has learned from his previous mistakes to be seriously considered, in my opinion. But if he is the choice, here's a mock off season. Uh, if Flores is the choice, he Ryan Poles would stay, maybe. Uh, Brian Flores would be head coach. Josh McCown would be OC, and actually that's interesting because he has played for the Bears before, but has he ever called plays before? I'm not
isn't he
sure.
coaching? Isn't he coaching high school right now or something?
No,
Or am I totally missing the
he's
boat on that?
he's the QB coach in Minnesota right now.
But he was a high school head coach before, wasn't he?
I think so. And then he
I
went
don't
to
know.
the.
I could be totally off on that, but
No, I think
anyways,
you're right. I think you're right. But and then his DC would be Mike Petine. I think that's how you say it.
Pet Pet
I'm not
Petton.
Pettin. Okay. Um,
Yeah,
the re-signings would be Darnell Taylor, who actually has played considerably well, to a 1 year deal. Bill Murray to a 1 year deal. Chris Williams to a 1 year deal. Josh Blackwell to a 1 year deal, and Matt Pryor to a 1 year deal. And then in free agency, we'd sign Drew Dahlman, which I think we need to sign him at least. He would be one of the top guys on my list for center. But we'll see if he leaves Atlanta. We'd sign Zach Martin to a 2 year deal. For me, that's a question mark because he's had a lot of injuries. No, no, not saying that he's a bad player. He's definitely going to the Hall of Fame. It's just he's I think 30, so he's getting there in age, and maybe and has slowed down quite a bit. And this move I would love if we brought Khalil Mack back for a couple of years. Just because he previously played for us a couple years ago. We signed Marcus Davenport to a 1 year deal, 1 year deal with Evan Brown. and a 2-year deal with Julian Blackman, um, and a 2-year deal with Elijah Moore. And then when it comes to the draft, we draft Will Campbell in the first round, Walter Nolan in the second round, Josh Connery in the third round, Cam Scadaboo in the fifth round, and then or no, Cam Scadaboo in the third round, and then Sony Styles in the fifth round. And the offense would pretty much look the same except Connery and uh, Campbell
Pretty
would
much
be.
just yeah. Well, the offensive line,
Yeah, the
everyone but
offensive
Darnell
line
Wright
is
changes.
different, and then a couple of uh, linebacker changes in DT, but not much different from our previous offense or offensive defense. And so that's we're not going to read the whole thing there. Number 7 is Cliff Kingsbury, and I actually think that he is a dark horse in this coaching search for the Bears, at least. Kingsbury is expected to interview for the Bears head coaching job, and everybody that's writing him off as a candidate, let's slow down a little bit for a minute. We're not hiring him for what he accomplished in Arizona. We're hiring him for what he's accomplished with Washington, and that's if we hire him. And let me say this. There, I just said that I don't think Mike McCarthy leaves uh, Dallas, so I'm just gonna say there are two. The three coaches that I believe are supposed to interview are um, Ben Johnson, Cliff Kingsbury, and Brian Flores. I really see Kingsbury as a dark horse candidate for two reasons. First, I remember reading somewhere that Kingsbury was Poles' choice for OC last year when they were searching for that, but Flus didn't want him coming for his job, so they went with the more experienced Shane Waldron. Um, Reason two is what is Kingsbury well known for, and that's quarterback development. He did it with Kyler Murray, and he's doing it again with Jaden Daniels. I mean, let me and I said I don't see McCarthy leaving Dallas. So there's a common factor with the three in Flores, Kingsbury, and uh, McCarthy if he leaves Dallas. And they've all been head coaches before. And if those three were the three on their list, the Bears, I'm taking Kingsbury because Caleb has a familiarity with the system that Kingsbury runs, so it wouldn't be much of a transition for him at least, which would be nice for sure. Um, and I had Hoodie Brisker do a mock off season for Kingsbury as well. He was the guy that did the Flores one as well. So Ryan Pace would stay on as GM, maybe. Kingsbury would be head coach. OC would be
Davita,
Tavita. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Pritchard, who is the QB coach for Washington right now, and DC would be Jason Simmons, who is a or defensive pass game coordinator for the Washington Commanders right now. And when it comes to re-signings, he put Tevin Jenkins on here. I do not see that happening. But who knows? Tevin Jenkins is actually out for tomorrow's game, so it could be his last game, or last game could have been his last game in a Bears uniform. And then Bill Murray was re-signed to a 1-year deal. Joshua Blackwell was signed to a 1-year deal. Chris Williams was signed to a 1-year deal, and Matt Pryor was signed to a 1-year deal. And then free agency, Drew Dahlman was the same. he has Will Anderson or Will uh, Hernandez signing a 3-year deal, and then Josh Sweat signing a 2-year deal, and Evan Brown signing a 2-year deal with Charles Emenwu signing a 1-year deal, and then he traded Tyreek Stevenson for a late third and a future sixth. So, um, and then the draft is he has us taking Josh Sitton with the 12th overall pick, so we traded back a little bit because I believe we're at 7 right now, something like that.
Nine, I believe.
Oh, nine right now.
Yeah.
It could be 7. I'm sorry, it could be 7. Um, so we traded back a little bit. In the second round, we take Tyleek Williams. I think that's how you say that. I'm not
Yeah.
sure. And then we also take Shaven Revel in the second round, and in the third round we take Quincy
Quinshon
Judkins,
Judkins. He just
and
gave
then
you all the orders to pronounce names in college football in this mock draft, huh?
yeah, I'm gonna have to talk to him about that. No, I'm joking, but they are very hard to pronounce. And then in the third round, you took Tez Johnson, who is actually I've heard good things about him. And then we got some conditional third round picks because he also predicted that Ian Cunningham gets hired in Indy, which I actually think is a real possibility. So that would give us 2 conditional third round picks for one for this year and one for next year. So he has us picking Josiah Stewart in the third round and Charles Grant in the third round as well, but doesn't know what pick because conditional picks are just given to you and you don't know until they're given to you. And then in the fifth round, he has us taking D Fairchild. I don't know who that is, but I mean, I definitely think that Kingsbury should definitely get a good look for the Bears, especially with Caleb. And I wouldn't be surprised if Caleb vouches for him. Um,
Yeah. I mean, if you look at it from an objective standpoint and things they said they wanted, previous head coaching experience, he checks that mark. Relationship with the young quarterbacks, building them up, checks that mark
uh-huh.
with Holmes, Daniels, and Kyler Murray. Relationship with Caleb, obviously, pretty
It's going
evident
to
where
be a
that comes
big,
from.
big part. Sure.
So, and I think that the fact that Washington has finished the season strong now, I voiced my opinion earlier in the season how Cliff Kingsbury offenses tend to slow down a bit as the season goes along,
I think he's
just based
learned
off of
from
his time
that
in
a little bit.
Arizona. But I mean, the Washington offense had a little bit of a lull when Jaden Daniels was injured in the middle of the year, but they've really, really picked it back up again in recent weeks. And I think we can continue to see that maybe it was just a Kyler Murray thing because Kyler Murray has definitely slowed down as the season has gone along and gotten later into it. So
Sure.
I think I've definitely changed my tune on Kingsbury a little bit. Before I would have genuinely probably been a little bit annoyed if we had hired Kingsbury, but now I think he's wiggled his way into my top 4-ish, 5-ish of candidates if I had to be
I
honest.
think I was actually going to move him to one of the top 5. And let us be clear. I didn't say this. I kind of went a little off script. Um, but if we put you in our top 5, that's like a hire that we're really comfortable with. And then if you're 6 through 8, we don't really have that much to say on it. It's just
Yeah, I
an,
think I
an
think we could
open
honestly move
hire.
Cliff. I think we could move Cliff up if we're being honest. You
I
know,
I'm gonna do this. I don't want to put. I'm not gonna put him in my top 3. I'll put him at 4. I'll put him at
I
4.
agree. I agree.
I think
I
that's
like
a
that.
good spot for him because I want Ben Johnson to be the choice, but if you can't convince him, and it's down to uh, him, Cliff, and Brian Flores. give me give me Cliff Kingsbury. Give me Cliff Kingsbury.
Yeah, I
Because
agree.
I I I I understand that Brian Flores also has head coaching experience, but he's also in the middle of a lawsuit with NFL. And
Yeah,
are the sure the the Bears brass, if that's Kevin Warren and Ryan Poles, they may sign off on that because they know him, but the deciding person that I don't think will sign off on it is George McCaskey,
yeah,
because
I could definitely see
he
that being a
has a
little hiccup in that.
problem with trouble. And I mean, there is actually one person that we didn't put on this list that I would actually like to talk about just really quickly, because I think it's a warranted talk about. Um, I don't know if it happens, but we're gonna bring it up. If the Bears were to bring in John Gruden for a interview, I would like it just because of his his success per se. I would not like it just because of the fact that he also has a lawsuit against the NFL. Um, but he's another guy that's kind of like the quarterback guru, and with Caleb, he's talked highly of him on the Barstool Sports or whatever company he's an analyst for. I think that's the company he's an
Yeah,
analyst for.
yeah, I was gonna
Um,
say. I mean, Gruden knows his football. That is for sure. I think selfishly, I hope he stays at Barstool because I think the videos he puts out are hilarious
oh, they
of
are
his like,
absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely. I mean, but I mean, if the thing that I also need to I'm going to bring up about Gruden is um, I don't think that he gets seriously considered for much, because Roger Goodell has a personal vendetta against him, and
yeah,
maybe Goodell says to one of the 6 or 7 coaching vacancies that are open, if you hire here, why don't you hire Gruden, and then he'll drop the lawsuit against us. But I don't see the McCaskies being okay with that,
yeah.
because they don't like trouble. But maybe a troublemaker is what we need to fix this.
Do something.
Um, and then number 8 for us, I don't expect him to actually get considered, is Thomas Brown. You just have to give him a courtesy interview. I mean,
Yeah, I mean that's all it should be though. I mean
but
it's
actually, I see this as a good thing, because I think what they're going to do when they have him in for his courtesy interview is they're going to ask him, what should we do to fix this? Because I read something that they have like a agenda with his interview. I can't remember what the article said, but I think that would be a good thing to ask them, like, or ask him, like, how would you make sure that the next head coach is successful? I mean, you'd have to phrase it in a different way, so it's not like he doesn't think that, oh, I'm actually not getting considered. I'm just asked. They're just doing the courtesy thing. But I think he knows that any interview that he gets with the Bears is a courtesy interview.
yeah, I mean you can't go oh and whatever he's gonna be to finish the season and expect to
And
get the job.
I mean, that's weird, because the guy that is the interim head coach for the Jets thinks that he's gonna, actually get considered. No, you're not.
Yeah,
So,
no. Fat chance, dude.
well, that's all we have for you today. Today, I mean, we've been talking for an hour, so we had plenty to talk about, but we kind of also kind of rolled around topics and just
We did, but we also had 2 weeks off, so we had a lot to get
yeah,
to.
we had a
So
lot to talk
hopefully
about. So
hopefully everybody listening has had enough content to tide them over from these last 2 weeks of absence, and
yeah,
we're back
but
on our regular schedule here
now
soon.
we're gonna be back to the regular schedule, of twice a week, and maybe even a couple more times during our next 2 weeks off, because the next 2 weeks are going to be vitally important for the head coaching hire. So we might have to have some emergency podcasts for the next 2 weeks. But when we get back to school, it's probably going to be the couple uh, twice a week thing, but we'll figure that out when we cross that bridge. So I hope everyone enjoyed, and we'll see you next time. Have a good
See you,
weekend.
everybody.